Welcome back to this episode of the Strong Kind Podcast. This episode is with Ashley Rath. Ashley is a breast cancer survivor. She's an women's health advocate. She's a power lifter. She's somebody who is helping women manage coming back from breast cancer. And she runs an organization called Rebuild a Bitch. I will link the links to that organization in the show notes here, but it's designed and built to help women manage various aspects of mental and physical health post cancer. So it's a really awesome organization, and talking to Ashley was really, really awesome. I hope you enjoy. I got a lot out of this conversation. I hope you do as well, and thanks for being here. There we go. All right. So, Ashley, I'm going to jump in to cancer.
Okay. Oh, you're just going right for it. Okay.
We're going right for it. We'll get into more about who you are and what you care about, but tell me, I don't remember if I was still in St. Louis. When did you get diagnosed?
2021.
Okay, so it was after. Yeah, so you went through COVID, and then you got kicked in the nads with cancer, kicked in the boobs with cancer.
Exactly. Yes.
So tell me about like going and getting a mammogram, I'm assuming, or going and getting a checkup and being like, oh shit, there might be something going on. Like, tell me what that.
It's funny because I actually spent yesterday making my annual appointments. Mammogram is one of the first things I got to do in March this year. But so it didn't start with mammogram because I was 39.
Okay.
It started with I just had a pain in my right breast, and I went to see my OB, and she was like, it's probably just a cyst. It's probably no big deal. And I was like, well, I'm 39. Mammogram started at 40. I was like, let's just go get one. So never had a mammogram before. Roll into the place, and it's uncomfortable, to say the least, even more uncomfortable now. But they're like, no big deal. We've never, the way they preface it is we've never seen your boobs before. So if we call you back, not a big deal. And I was like, okay. First mammogram, check, called me back. Second mammogram, I was a little okay, try not to get nervous. But then that second mammogram, they were like, okay, we need to do an ultrasound. And that's when I started to get a little uneasy. And then the ultrasound tech, she finishes, she's like, goes out and brings back the doctor. And that's when I was like, oh fuck. Hopefully it's okay to cuss on here, but
I have an explicit rating, so
okay. And so he comes in and says we need to do a biopsy. So this whole process took, I don't know, probably from the time of having the pain to the time of actually getting the biopsy, probably I don't know, between 5 and 6 weeks. It's not a fast process. Granted, there was a kid's spring break in there that I just didn't want to mess up. So I got the biopsy right after that. And a few days later, at about 8 o'clock on a Thursday night, I got a MyChart message that said invasive ductal carcinoma. And I just was like, that's a really strange way to tell me that everything's okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Where did what do you remember what you felt and where your brain went after that, where your mind went?
So I hadn't had a lot of experience with cancer, in people around me. I had a friend in college, he passed from a rare brain tumor. And so that was kind of my extent of my knowledge. And so I am quite certain that my first thought was okay, I'm gonna die. I'm literally going to die soon. And I have my two young girls were home at the time. I think they were 5 and 8 at the time ish. And I just curled up in a ball and I cried. I also drank a whole bottle of wine and then curled up in a ball, and that's how I went to sleep that night. So there was just a lot of unknown. And because I got that message at 8 o'clock at night, there was nobody from the doctor's office to call me. I didn't get a call until the next morning. So
yeah. Ugh.
mm-hmm.
Just it's crazy how a night can go, it's crazy how you can go to sleep and like wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. and be like, oh, that was a great night. Or you can be stewing in your
Yeah.
bed and it'd be like the longest night of your life type of thing,
It,
right?
yeah, it
Um,
literally was the hardest sleep, and then just waking up, it's like I still didn't know what I was waking up to because
yeah,
I didn't even know what to do at that point. So,
yeah. All right, so just the trajectory of like you're gonna have a mastectomy, like pretty was that like what you
no, actually, so it was so I went through Mercy here for some of the initial stuff, ended up at BJC though. But the first thing that happens is they have like a nurse navigator call you.
mm,
And this person is kind of like your contact to help you navigate providers and next steps and all of that. And so step one was really to like as part of your pathology, when you get your results, they give you, the grade, I don't know, there's like a Nottingham score. There's all of these different things, right? And then there's your tumor biology. So it can be estrogen, progesterone, both of those, HER2, it can be all three, it can be none of the above, in which case it's triple negative. And so mine was incredibly rare because it was just progesterone. And so there's not a lot of studies on that. So step one for me was actually to get the genetic testing because that would determine like my surgery path.
mm,
And so I did that. I was negative for all the genetics. And then step two was really to start making appointments with surgeons, right? So I met with two surgeons. I basically took up the first person who was first available because based on what I was reading, I had a really aggressive cancer and I really wanted it out. So I actually didn't even get a mastectomy. I had a lumpectomy. Uh,
mm, okay.
yeah, so a lot less invasive of a surgery. Like you think about mastectomy is
Yeah,
literally like you're amputating your boobs,
yeah,
like
yeah,
cutting them off.
yeah.
Um,
I
so
shouldn't have assumed that you had a mastectomy, but I guess I kind of did, so I apologize.
no,
But
that's okay.
I mean, that's just where like the male mind goes,
Yeah,
just to be honest, which
yeah,
because it's like, okay, there's cancer in there, let's just chop them off, which
yeah,
gosh, would be just very, very wild for I think anyone, right?
yeah,
And it's one of those things you look back, you hope we look back in like 30 or 40 years and it's like, yeah, we used to just cut them off, right? And
I
we're not
know.
doing that anymore, right?
Well, and I guess you just never really know. And I definitely like toggled back and forth. Like it's always a choice. Like you
Yeah,
can do that if you want.
yeah, yeah,
And I had many freak out moments where I was like, just fucking cut them off. I don't want them. Just cut them off.
yeah,
And my surgeon was just like, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. Whichever way you go, your chances of survival are the same. And I was like, okay.
yeah, yeah. Think about that person being like, this is laying down it out. I mean,
Yeah.
so which in your brain you're like, how do you know? Like, right? That's where our
Yeah.
brains go, right? So
Yeah.
what's all right. Like I use the word anxiety, and I always want to qualify this because like we all are gonna experience anxiety. But here's the thing about emotions is like, and I'm literally listening to this book right now. It's like everybody's concept of anxiety is completely unique to them. Just
That's
like
fair.
everybody's concept of pain is completely unique to them, right? These are all
Mhm.
like learned things. But like if we just look at like uncertainty and like fear and this cocktail of how it's affecting you as a person, and we call that like anxiety, right? What were the big things that like even now you still have to like work through as somebody who's managed this diagnosis? And you like you mentioned you're getting your appointments scheduled this year,
Mhm.
like do
Yeah.
you have this fear of something coming
Yeah.
back or XYZ?
Yeah. I will say, so it gets better. It has decreased quite a bit. But if you had asked me in 2022, I would have said I think about cancer coming back every single day. Like that is what I thought about every single day of 2022. Every time I got a scan, every time I had a pain, anytime anything felt different, I thought cancer was back. Anytime I have a headache that lasts too long, it's a brain tumor. Um,
Yeah, I go
so
through that. I
that's
get I
just
get
this, yeah.
ocular headaches. I'm like, oh shit, this is a brain tumor. This is and
Well,
like, and I know objectively, it's like, dude, you haven't drank water, You've been staring at screens for the last
Yeah.
7 hours. You've just like, and usually it's like I go work out and I feel better, and it's like you just need some blood flow up there, dude. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy, right?
Yeah. So the anxiety was incredibly high like when I first found out. And I didn't know it at the time. So I found an oncologist who's like wonderful and she appeases my anxiety, if you will, a lot. And she did. Um, but I immediately wanted to scan my whole body, right? Because if this had spread somewhere, I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Um, and so the four places that breast cancer can go are your brain, your bones, your liver, and your lungs. And so we scanned all of those first. Everything came back fine. Um, but that anxiety of every single little ache and pain was not something that I had ever experienced. I don't like it, but it's people like you, and I mean this in the nicest way, but like people who are just get to live their life blissfully unaware of that anxiety. I sometimes get a little bit jealous of that, right? Like, because I can't live like that anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's like my eyes were opened and I can't go back. And
Yeah.
so we're 3 years out now, four going into year four almost.
Hmm.
But like I said, I've March is mammogram, March is radiation oncology follow-up, March is medical oncology follow-up. So like it literally every single time scares the shit out of me that I have to go get a scan. But I don't think about it every day. Um, so it's definitely subsided. And I'm very fortunate, right, that that's just not it's just not my everyday reality anymore.
What's
Um,
what's
but,
helped it? What's helped you not think about it so much? You think in your
uh,
opinion?
time for one. The further you get away from it, the less your chances are of recurrence, which is great. Obviously, like 5 years is what everybody wants to get to because when they talk about our survival rate, especially for women in breast cancer, they're talking about like this is your chance of surviving the next 5 years of your life, which is pretty fucked up when you think about it. And I didn't know that at the time. Um, but so the closer you get to 5 years, like that helps. Fitness, right? Like I was doing CrossFit prior to being diagnosed. I had done CrossFit for like 10 years. I met you at CrossFit Levo, right? Um and that was kind of my outlet to go. I mean, that was where I went the day after I was diagnosed, is I just went to the gym because I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And so
This
to
is
be
typically my strategy too. When I don't know what to do, I just go
yeah,
work out.
I just go like I was just like, I don't know, they can listen to me cry and then we can work out and maybe
Yeah.
everything will just be a little bit better. But unfortunately couldn't do CrossFit anymore thanks to radiation. But I picked up powerlifting, as you know. And like that alone, just being able to like tune out, you know, focus on movements that don't irritate my body anymore.
Hmm.
I love CrossFit, but it was really hard. It's really hard to have like a post-cancer life and have radiation that damages your blood vessels and like it doesn't function the same anymore. So, having changed my type of workout, having gotten further away from it, and just more consistency and like eating healthy, working out regularly, like that has all like really, really helped manage that anxiety and stress. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if we go back to the definition of anxiety, it's like a worry and an uncertainty in
mhm,
like what's going to come. And then like there's a physiologic response to that
mhm,
but like you literally just described how people take control of their life, right? Which is exercise.
mhm.
Hey, what can I do to take care of myself as best possible, right? And like that though there is some amount of hopefully certainty in those things, right? Or at least like, hey, I'm at least trying, which is bodes
Yeah,
pretty well for us, right?
yeah.
um so rebuild the bitch, which I just I was like, how am I gonna make this transition? But I'm just gonna say it. And so are you bitch number one? Would you qualify yourself as
Uh,
the first
I
bitch
guess
to be
I
rebuilt,
guess so.
or
I guess so. I'm the founder, so I'd be the first bitch,
you
and then
shouldn't
I'm
call
not the
yourself bitch number one? So I just want to know, and I love it, but like, why? So why rebuild a bitch? And just tell me about, okay, what's the organization?
Yep.
What are your goals? Tell us about that. But then, like, yeah, where's that name stem from, and what is that about?
Yeah, so the name stems from I the year after I battled breast cancer, my ex-husband's boss battled leukemia. And he reached out to me during his journey and he was like, "Hey, I was really inspired by watching you work out and keep moving and just kind of rebuild yourself after that experience." And he was like, "I learned how to rebuild a bitch." Or he said, "I watched you learn how to rebuild a bitch without an instruction manual." And he was like, "By the way, rebuildabitch.com is available." And I was like, "Huh." So that's where like the name eventually originally came from. Um, but it's really all about, the surgery. I had chemo, I had radiation, I had my ovaries taken out. I'm in menopause or postmenopausal, right? Like I've had my life completely fucked up from
Hmm.
cancer and from cancer treatment. And you have to, there's so much focus at the beginning of like, how do I get back to this person that I was? And like, how do I get back? Like, what's my new normal? But like at the end of the day, like none of that is valid, right? Like you are a totally different person on the other side. You have to almost rebuild that person from scratch. And then when you get through all of that, for me, it just felt so like, man, I'm a bad bitch. I like just did all of that and I did all of that while working out and just like I fucking crushed it. Like we joked at the CrossFit gym that I was a chemo fighting ninja because I was expecting to be like laying in bed for all of chemo and I never really crashed. And so it's really just about rebuilding yourself after cancer. And so that's kind of like the origin. And then there are four other breast cancer survivors that are on the board. We met each other through a fitness organization that is now gone, unfortunately. Um, but so it was my idea to start the organization. I brought these other ladies along with me. And the idea was that as we all progressed in our like post cancer life, we were finding various things that we struggled with, right? One being mental health. Like that was a tough thing to swallow. It's like the treatment's great. You're like, have these countdowns. You're like, I've only got 10 chemos left or 5 chemos left. I've only
Yeah.
got 5 rounds of radiation left. You have all these countdowns and you have something to like look forward to. And when it's all done, you're just like, now what? And so
Yeah.
did a lot of therapy, um, actually had access to a mental performance coach. And that all was like really instrumental in helping me rebuild myself. So we started with, let's provide mental health coaching for these women who've been impacted by cancer. Um, we just hit a fundraising target last year to add on intimacy coaching, which really relates to learning how to like love your body again after that trauma, especially for women who are postmenopausal and had to cut their breasts off and all of the things, right? Like it's a whole new body to figure out how to like navigate. So yeah, right now we're just providing scholarships up to $500 for women to get those services.
That's awesome. No,
Yeah.
I mean, can I just say this too? Starting stuff and keeping it going is really freaking hard in
Yeah.
any realm. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. And kudos to you for A, trying. I think we're in this really
Yeah.
weird apathetic kind of state where people just stop have not everybody, right? But we just like we don't try
Yeah.
because it just seems so overwhelming to try, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the now what, right? Like uh and the you're right. It's like, hey, this is when it's gonna end. This is when the chemotherapies, this is when treatment ends. But then it's like
Mhm.
I'm not a really big I think the past is the past is what we can learn from, but so much of people's time is spent worrying about what they used to be able to do or what life used to look like. And I think that stems from the certainty of that it's already occurred.
Mhm.
Right? Oh, like let me just get back to the way it used to be. And like that's not how life works, right?
Yeah.
But how you've kind of mentioned it a little bit, but like moving forward, right? Like your life, you're a completely different person than you were in 2020, right?
Yep.
You're like how have you adjusted to that? And like, what do you think, what would you say what would you say to 2020 version of, or 2021 newly diagnosed version of you, looking back, if you could?
I mean, I would probably one tell her it's gonna be okay because she was terrified. Two, tell her it's probably gonna get a lot better. Because I think about 2021 version of me was pursuing things that probably weren't so great for me. And I don't know, 2025 me is now like, what can I do to take care of myself? It's less about like, yes, I want to take care of my kids. I want to, support the people around me, but that can't be my primary focus. Like I have to also put myself first. And so I think that's probably like the biggest learning experience for me is that it's okay to make that time for yourself, make yourself a priority. The other part that is when before cancer, and you probably, and I'm not sure how you feel about this, but you kind of have this innate sense of like you feel like you have a little bit of control over your life. And then something like that happens, and you're like, I have no control
Yeah,
over anything. And I had to just roll with what people told me to do and get through it as best I could. And so that was really hard to have to let go. I'm a planner. Like
yeah,
I like to plan ahead. So having this big, massive life event happen and fuck everything up just threw me for a loop. So a lot of it is just like now, like what can I control? Like I can't control if cancer ever comes back. Technically, it's out of my hands.
yeah,
But what I can control is what I put in my body, how often I work out, how I control my stress levels, like and how I take care of myself, right? Because at the end of
yeah,
the day, that's all. I think it's a combination of all of those things that probably led to it in the first place.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah.
I'm sorry, it's really cold in my basement, so I put my hat back. Um, we got like it's like not regulated well. I hate to segue to that right there, but no. So this is my 2024 revelation that really, I talked to my therapist, and I really haven't utilized. I don't think, like, if you're in therapy forever, like we got to like talk about this a little bit, right? I think it's good. Like it's kind of this, well, it's, I can't say that because like Lauren's worked with me for like 4 years, and but where there's always a goal, right? Where I do
Right.
feel like people get perpetually in self-help mode, and it's like
Yeah.
you got to just go freaking live, right? But the
Yeah.
thing that um and I used the guy I talked to, and then he had me do this exercise. I'm like, holy shit. It's like, he's like, it's basically like, what are you afraid of? And it usually just stems from death. So
Yeah.
he's like, he's like, it doesn't mean that you're gonna like not have big emotions oriented around death. Like you have young girls. I just had a
Mm.
son. Do I want to die? No. Right.
Yeah.
But like, just realizing that you're gonna die someday.
Mhm.
And I know it's super cliche in this day and age because we've taken like stoicism and we've applied it to like everything. But like I do believe in memento mori, which is like just remember that like you're gonna die, right?
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't mean, and there's also this interesting dichotomy about like you can't then just be anxious about that every day. You just wake up and you do your day as best you can, and then you be kind to yourself, and like then you do it again.
Mhm.
And I think so many people, like you said, you prioritized yourself. So many people look at self prioritization as if it's selfish or that they don't have time, and it's like
Yeah.
you, and this is my biggest takeaway in healthcare, was that like if people took care of themselves, we wouldn't have to externally take care of everybody. That is what eventually happens, right? And like your situation, you need taken care of. That's good.
Right.
You were
Yeah.
also strong. You were also like, you had worked on some of this stuff. You also saw the benefit of continuing to move. So like you didn't need as much as somebody who maybe like, and again, I don't want to place blame on anyone. That's not what this is about. But
Yeah.
you took action in ways that at least kept your morale high and kept you moving forward, right? And
Yeah.
that's like, we just, oh man, and we just have, humans are so interesting. Like and I don't want to claim like I've got it all figured out, but when you just really zoom out, it's like, what is this about?
Yeah.
We feel inadequate, we're scared of everything, and we know we're gonna die, so we're like trying to just avoid that shit. And like the more
Yeah.
we just come to terms with it, the better get things get, right?
Well, and the other part is like I probably, and I'm still like this, right? Like I like to keep busy. But I took off during chemo. Like I took off 6 months of work, which was just like strange for me because I was just like, okay, you're gonna be laid up in bed. You're not gonna be able, you're gonna feel sick all the time. And I didn't. One of my coworkers was like texting me the whole time, like he's like, how's your vacation? I'm like, you can have this fucking vacation. I don't want this vacation.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but I think part of it is that like if you're not taking the time to like focus on yourself a little bit, like I don't think I would have maybe paid close attention to that pain. Like during chemo, I ended up with like a blood clot in my neck. I needed like a blood transfusion. Like there were just so many things that happened that like if I hadn't started taking the time to like listen to my body and listen to like what's going on and what it's telling me, like I don't know if I would have known those things, right?
yeah.
Like part of it is just like, what is my body telling me right now and how does it feel in this situation? And people, I feel like tune that out quite a bit. Or we keep
It's
ourselves so busy that we don't notice.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like there's two ends of that spectrum. It's like just overly attentive to it, but and like those are the people who like
It's
frankly
hypochondria.
they have too much time on their hands, and then there's the people who just
Yeah.
like tune it out because they got so busy. And it's like
Yeah.
I'm always talking about this with people because I think it's like you have to find the relative zone where you're like you're paying enough attention to
Uh-huh.
like, when it comes to like pain or injuries. Like if you're a CrossFitter and you're like, my shoulder hurts. And it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, I'm doing 100 kipping pull-ups and overhead, push presses, and I'm, also running, and I'm also, it's like, okay, let's like maybe dial it back. I'm like, no, can't do that. I'm gonna do some other
Yeah.
stuff, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, and or a power lifter, like, well, I'm trying to max out every session or whatever. It's like, okay, let's find the zone where you actually tolerate this, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of the same with what you're talking about. If because I like to stay busy too, mostly because I if I don't stay busy, I like just I'm bored and I cause
Yep.
problems, right? But that's also the thing I need is to like
Mhm.
stare at a wall for a little while, right? Or
Yeah.
like, quote unquote meditate or go for walks unstimulated, right?
Yep.
Um, but I think we literally get addicted to stuff that and we just our identity drives our behavior so much that like I can't slow down. I got kids to take care of. I got all these things. And it's like, yes, you can. Like, and you need to. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself insane or it's gonna lead to negative health things, right?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so like when it comes to all right, let's talk powerlifting because that's one of the things. So
Yeah.
were you really frustrated by not being able to do CrossFit, or was it like how much did that suck for you?
It was like really fucking hard. That was a hard pill to swallow because again, I had been doing CrossFit so long. I had become so used to like having a community of people that I work out with and we push each other and we compete against each other and like that was my jam. And so but what I also found is that after I had radiation, I like went straight back to CrossFit just like nothing had ever happened and I gave myself lymphedema. And I was like, okay, this really sucks. And then after like lots of OT, then PT and I think it was the PT that was like, maybe you should try some other things. And I was like, no, like CrossFit is that's my life. Like that's what I do. And so like that was a hard pill to swallow. Um, but the fact that I kept like injuring myself, like I've given myself lymphedema probably like 2 or 3 times now. So, but not since I switched to powerlifting. So, I think I just had a realization that like I couldn't work out like I used to. It wasn't quite as fun for me anymore. And so, that's when I started looking into like a strength gym. And I just started, I mean, I started the beginning of last year, I want to say. Just doing like general like group classes and like a strength training gym. And then it wasn't until like middle of last year that I was kind of like, I don't know, let me give powerlifting a try because one, I always feel a little bit better when I'm like training toward something. Like
Yeah.
I was just like work like I love working out, but if there's no goal associated, there's like less motivation. And so that's when Lauren convinced me to sign up for the meet, and we just went all in.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, it's way exercises is exercising is great, right? Like I think CrossFit brings a lot of people in. It taps into this competitiveness and this community that people don't get it, like, which can be very beneficial. It can also be kind of negative, but that you could say the same
Mhm.
about powerlifting. But like
Yeah.
having a meet or a race or something on your schedule just is like a game changer because it just focuses you and it gives you, it's just like you said, like, oh, I got 10 more treatments. Okay. Like, because then
Yeah.
what people do is they do a meet and then it's like, well, now what? And it's like, well, I'll
I
sign up for
know.
the next one. Right. So, which is
Which
good
is
or bad.
basically what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's because, oh, man, we're such interesting. Like right now, I'm just really training because I love to train. I've finally gotten to this process orientation where I just know it
Mhm.
makes me feel better. I still have goals, but I just care about showing up and trying and like just and also just being an example. Like most of how I get people is like I'm just an example and people like, hey, like, they want to buy what I'm selling, right? But
Yeah.
and and that's like the awesome thing about powerlifting or Olympic lifting or anything that kind of you can set a date with is like this is gives me enough focus to keep doing the thing that ultimately just makes me better for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
Have you enjoyed the more redundancy of powerlifting, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, it was a big change. I am enjoying my rest between sets.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is that part is very nice. I work out a lot of times. I mean, it's a very small gym that I go to. Sometimes my coach is there, sometimes he's not. So a lot of times I'll work out by myself. But I enjoy the slow pace of it a lot more than I thought I would. Um, I tried Oli lifting for a while, when I was like kind of weaning off of CrossFit. Um, but being postmenopausal now, like my joints, they don't like it. And so like, dropping under a snatch or, squatting down for a clean, like just was not working out for like my knees anymore, which I still struggle sometimes with back squats, but, um, I ended up reading a book on menopause. It's called Next Level, of which I wish that, like, my doctor, before she took out my ovaries, I wish that she would have just said,
give
hey,
it. Yeah,
yeah, like tell me a little bit about like what to expect. She was more concerned with like my chances of like heart disease because we took my ovaries out at the age of 40. Um, but
yeah.
I
This is the Tracy Sims book, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or Stacy Sims.
Safety Sims, yep.
Yeah,
So that was a really good book because it one helped me identify that like everything that I was struggling with, like I was like, oh, this could be because I have like no estrogen in my body. And also like no progesterone. So that book was kind of a game changer for me. And it also helped me identify that a lot of the workouts that I'm doing now are more so like what my body needs, right? It doesn't need um Olympic lifting. What it needs is like what I think was like 3 to 6 reps of like decently heavy weight, right? Granted, like prepping for me, it's going to go a lot heavier, but my body just feels a lot better now
mhm.
doing powerlifting. So it's been a good change.
That's good. Yeah, like this is what I always try to go back to as well. It's like, I mean, strength, force production, moving and like controlling weights, like learning to do that is it's kind of the universal thing that like pretty much
Mhm.
everybody can tolerate. Like
Mhm.
not everybody can tolerate like speed type work or plyometrics and stuff like that. Doesn't mean you can never get there, but like a lot of times like building a pretty big base of strength and even like just cardio, like there's two things that the general population is probably going to benefit from. It's like making sure that their heart is strong and can pump, which is just honestly like ride a bike for 30 minutes a couple times a week or once a week you do that and then you do some intervals and then it's like you need to just lift heavier
Mhm.
than you would if you weren't like if like heavy enough, right? And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get my mom to understand. It's like she got strong and then she got stronger and then she's just never kept pushing. So it's like she's kind of regressing because she's afraid to go past 120 pounds. It's like, well, you're stronger than that, right? You can do more.
Yeah.
But she's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's enough. That's enough. And it's like people who think like walking is gonna keep me fit. There's nothing wrong with walking, but like walking's not gonna keep you strong at a certain
Yeah.
point, right? So
Yeah. And I think a lot about like my bone strength now too, right? Like every 2 years I get a bone density test now. And the last one I got was maybe the year before last year, but they're supposed to do it like a baseline.
mhm,
I take a medicine called exemestane, and it is an estrogen suppression
mhm,
medicine.
mhm.
Um, and they should have taken like a baseline bone density scan at that time, but we think we were like a year later as I was into the drug already. Um, but like my bone density had gone down. I mean, so part of it was like I didn't know if it was because of my age. I didn't know if it was because of the medicine. Um, but they offer an injection. I can't remember the name of it right now, but to like build bone back.
Yeah,
And I was just like, no, I don't really want that yet. I was like,
yeah,
let me lift weights. Let me make sure I've got enough like vitamin D. Like I don't want to get that injection if I don't need it. And so part of a lot of like when I'm thinking about what I'm doing, I'm trying to think about like one, it helps my mental health. Two, like helps my bones. Like one,
yeah,
it's good to feel strong. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
yeah. No, it's I mean, I'm really glad that you continued and you pivoted and you didn't say, okay, I can't do the thing that I maybe enjoy or whatever, and you found something else. I think even if even like I think finding something that you enjoy that helps you clear your head and
Mhm.
helps you stay moving and build confidence, like everybody needs something like that. I don't think
Yeah.
like we can overlook that. Like mental health, I don't really look at mental health and physical health as like a dichotomy or as anything different, because like if you are not mentally confident about your body, it
Mhm.
affects everything, right? If you are not physically well, of course you're mentally not going to be freaking in a right place, right? So like for us to think that they're different is like, I think it's just kind of us trying to break things down. But like the most confidence building thing that I've ever had in my life is just physical activity that show
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't do a pull up. Oh, now I can do a pull up. That's awesome. Oh, I can't deadlift 300 pounds. Oh, I can now. Like, that's awesome. It shows you like you can make
Yeah.
progress, right?
Yeah.
Um, all right. When's your next powerlifting meet?
It's in March with Lauren.
Oh, that's right. Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I'm
she's
excited.
like,
She got
uh,
invited. She's like top 10 or
yeah.
like
Is
the
it so
very.
you're at the prime time one or
I
like,
haven't signed up yet, but yeah.
all right, yeah, do it. Sign up. You need to sign up. Go do
I'm
it.
already, I mean, I'm already prepping for it, so I got to sign up. And
Yeah,
I
you
think
better.
it's been really helpful to like Johan, who's my coach.
Yep.
He for the longest time, I'm working out with him for a year and a half now or something. And I think I even tried strongman briefly, right? But like strongman was just like kind of irritating my lat. Like it just, that wasn't, I may still try it one day, but
Yeah.
um, he was just like the first person to probably call out. He was like, I think you're babying your right side. And I was like,
Yeah.
hey, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's just, I mean, I am not quite at all of like lifetime numbers, but I should be by March, which is just like wild to me to even like think that that would have been possible given what happened a few years ago. Like I
Yeah.
never thought that this would be where I am. So
Yeah. That's awesome. And that's the hard thing. Okay, because I'm gonna be honest, like I really optimistically believe people like you can do it. Like I'm not saying that CrossFit maybe is the thing you should jump back into. I'm saying like some form of like targeted like metcon and stuff that we like really adapt to you could be doable, right? But that's kind of not why people like CrossFit, right? So
yeah,
it's like with powerlifting or with Olympic lifting, it's like the other hard part about stuff is like it takes a freaking long time for us to adapt to stuff, right? And
mhm,
so like having a coach is like, you have to trust him, because if he says that to you week one, you're like, this guy's a freaking idiot. I'm getting out.
yeah,
But
yeah,
if it's been 6 months to a year and you like like and trust him and you believe in his judgment and he can poke into it,
yeah,
then that's really good, right?
yeah,
But the problem is that I wouldn't do this, but I would like you could be like, well, so my wife My wife could be really freaking strong. All right. I can't really coach her,
That's fair. Yeah.
and because but my buddy was coaching her. Oh, we would go to a gym. It's actually in Missouri. It's the Strength Parlor, which is in O'Fallon, and
Okay.
his name's Cody. I love him. If Cody listens to this, we love you. Mary loves you. But Cody said something to my wife that like pissed her off like week 2. Like she was doing a heavy set of squats, and he's like, "It's hard. You've never done anything hard before," and she was like, F this. I have done hard stuff. That guy doesn't get to tell me what's up. So like she was immediately turned off, right? So and that's just the hard part about like humans is like we could say one thing that like we don't even mean anything by it, but like we could be like, fuck this guy. I'm
Yeah.
out.
No,
Right?
that's fair. But
And
you gotta build
you
that relationship first, like you said. Like you can't.
yeah. And the
Johan can
relation
say that now because I know him really well. But if he had said that the first week, I would have been like, okay, this probably isn't gonna work.
exactly, right? And that's just the nature of trust and humans, right? So do you have goal like okay, so I'm gonna ask you specifically, what are you gonna squat, bench, and deadlift? What are the goals?
Okay. So it depends on if you ask me what Lauren wrote down for me or what I
What
so
did Lauren write down for you?
she wrote down a 150 bench. Um
Tell Lauren that she can do 225-pound bench, and I'm
I'm
trying to
sure
convince
she
her.
can.
I
I'm sure
know
she
it's
can.
like she just can't. She just has convinced herself. This is the hard part that I'm not a good bencher, or I like. It's like the more. This is the thing that people need to realize. You have enough muscle mass on your body that if your brain will actually freaking turn it on, you can do more than you think you can, right? Like that's why people can lift up shit when they're in a scary situation or when they're fending for XYZ. Because when this thing gets online, you can do more. Not saying
Yeah.
that it just happens like
Yeah.
in the gym, but like there's a 10 there's a 10 to 20% like deviation in our potential. And you know this too, because
I could see
you've
that. Yeah.
probably been
The mental
super
block.
you've been super exhausted in a CrossFit workout, and then you finally like hit a rep that was like, holy shit, how did I do that? And it was like you finally
Yeah.
got to that place, right? And I'm
Hmm.
not saying that happens all the time, but like that's where you got to go, and we're just
Yep.
afraid to go there, right?
I know. It's a work in progress, work in progress. So 150 bench between 250, 275 squat, I think is what she wrote down, and then a 300-pound deadlift. So
Yeah, those are
well,
good. Yeah,
all of that is like well beyond lifetime PR. So if it's not quite that, I'm okay with that too.
yeah. I mean, and like the cool thing is, I mean, I think depending, I like Johan too. I've interacted with him, and I think he's smart and he's strong as shit.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Like,
really
so it's a lot of it's just if your programming is good, and powerlifting is this game where if people just don't burn themselves out and they just like consistently show up, you can get good at it and be good at it for a long time. What
yeah.
happens is we just get greedy, right? Oh, I want to make as much progress in the next 6 weeks as I can, or 6 months. And it's like, no, like you just ride these waves. So
Yeah, it's definitely the whole prep for the last one that was interesting. I'd never done that before, and it just to feel so like depleted, like
like the last two
shortly
weeks.
before the meet, I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm gonna fail. And then you feel like great that day. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was wild.
Yeah,
So
you should feel like shit the last 2 weeks, and then you're
yeah,
like, all right, I feel pretty good, and then a lot of it's just a head game, right? So
yeah, yeah. No, I'm excited.
what? All right, I kind of want to end this with like your maybe we talked about a little bit, like kind of what you would tell yourself, but for women who are experienced and I'm gonna be honest, like 30 people are gonna listen to this or watch it, so it's not maybe gonna get to the masses, but
Maybe more. I'll share too.
okay, exactly. So, but I mean, I think it's very true that you're gonna share it too, but like you know, riding the waves of your diagnosis and your treatment and life, like what are the big things that again, you look back on, you're like, these were the non-negotiable things, or these are what helped me get through it. Both that were internal to just who you are as a person, but also maybe external. What are those things?
Um, hmm. I mean, one, it's probably to keep moving in like whatever way, shape, or form that is. Like moving your body is so immensely helpful, and it was so helpful during my cancer treatment and after. Um, Finding a way to find joy in even the smallest of things, because like when you're in treatment for cancer and like there's not a lot of happy things going on, right? Like, but it's like what joyful thing can I find in today? Um, so just again, the the more I think I had a journal where I wrote down like three things a day of like this is something good that happened today.
Yeah.
And that kept me going quite a bit. Um, and then a lot of it for me is just like like listening to my body so much more than what I used to, right? Like if you're around bad people or you're doing bad things or just like paying attention to like how your body's feeling in certain moments and really trying to like honor that instead of like pushing that away or making
Hmm.
excuses for something like that. That's been such a big learning moment for me as well. And then, you've got kids now, so just, finding ways to set good examples for your children and, making them a priority, but making yourself a priority. But, a lot of what I do is because I want my kids to know that, they're capable of doing great things even during the hardest times. And I don't know, we're capable of a lot more than we think we are. I guess at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like I surprise the shit out of myself. I've seen a lot of women do the same. Um, yeah, we're just capable of a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, moving the joy, like it's weird how it's weird how I ask myself, how can I enjoy what I'm doing? And this is
Mhm.
something that came up through therapy and through managing like my own anxiety and depression and stuff. It's like these frames of mind that you can try to inject into yourself. They can be giant game changers. Like if it's like, okay, how do I don't like to exercise. Well, how can you make it 15% more enjoyable? Oh,
Yeah.
I can put on music that I really
Mhm.
like and I can reward myself after it's done. Okay,
Yeah.
that at least gets you doing it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but even just like I wrote something the other day. It's just like slowing down, like forcing yourself to slow down and like appreciate like I'm a big believer in mindfulness meditation, which mindfulness
Mhm.
meditation is just basically zooming out and just appreciating what's happening right now. It's not like what's crazy is Americans have turned meditation into like something you do to like achieve something. And it's like, it's literally the opposite of that. It is zooming out and just being still and being present or just noticing, right?
Yeah.
Noticing that like your kid is playing, right? Noticing like you're alive, right?
Mhm.
Like and like you said, writing down, hey, I'm just grateful. I literally write down like I'm grateful for coffee in the morning because I can't think of anything else. Like I'm grateful for my oatmeal. But like it's like gratitude turns down your amygdala, which is like essentially your fear, like the fear center of your brain or the anxiety center of your brain a little bit because you just are grateful, right? So I love that. And then man, it's crazy how good boundaries are for us. Or like
Yeah.
realizing like it's hard because we're
Yeah.
social. Like we get our worth until you learn to get your worth from yourself. We get our worth from other people, right?
Yep.
So, and if you're with the wrong fucking people, or if you're in
Mhm.
the wrong job, or you're in the wrong environment,
Mhm.
it can be really hard. And you don't
Yeah.
realize how much that's affecting you physically and mentally until you're
Yeah.
in a new spot, right?
Yeah. Which I mean that's why I'm divorced twice now because that second time around, like before I left, like I was like living with like my heart racing every day. And like that
Yeah,
was like, we can't do that. And now it's just like
yeah.
calm.
It sucks to say this, but like a lot of times people are you're better off alone than in shitty relationships,
I
right?
know. I know. Yeah.
And I'm not like that's not a critique of like there was a it's funny because I got very lucky that I was around my wife long enough to allow myself to be the type of like allow myself to be the person that then we got together as
Hmm.
opposed to like forcing it,
Right.
which it'll fuck you up. So
Yeah.
and I'm glad you figured it out and you valued yourself enough to make the change and that you'll figure it out too.
All the big changes came from cancer. So I can, again, like I did a whole thing where I got on stage and I like thanked cancer and like I stand behind that 100% because if I
I
had not,
think
if I
I
had not
think
gotten cancer, I would not be at all where I'm at today.
I
So
think going through a major depressive episode for my perspective, like it's crazy. And I know that's like some people like who because these are things that we can literally struggle with like our whole life. But I also think what I would say is cancer, depression, mental health, anything like you're not your problem. Like cancer, you are not cancer. I am not depression, right? We are not our problems. We are outside of these problems, and yes, like they could kill us, right? Like,
mhm.
unfortunately, that side of stuff sucks. But like, you can if you like you learned a tremendous amount about life and yourself in that, and like yeah, you're in the position you are today, and you also weirdly have a shit ton of confidence about like moving forward into uncertainty that you wouldn't otherwise have,
Yeah,
um that you can also help other people
yeah,
because of, right, and that's pretty awesome. So yeah,
yeah,
thank you so much, this has been
yeah, of
awesome.
course. Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
um where can people find Rebuild a Bitch? Where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, well, Facebook, Instagram, just Ashley Rath, and then Rebuild a Bee on Instagram and Facebook, and then rebuildab.org.
I'll
And
I'll put those links in the show
yeah,
notes for you. So
yeah,
yeah,
love it.
super cool. I appreciate
Cool.
it so much.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Peace.
All right, bye.